So I guess that's it. This is the last time I'm going to be making a Young Royals video, which is kind of heartbreaking because I've really enjoyed recapping this show. But at the same time, I can't remember a recent teen show that's given me such a satisfying closure ending. I think the most recent one that comes to mind is Never Have I Ever. That had a really good finale as well. I was really surprised by this because by episode 3, I'd already written the subtitle to this video with the question, is the magic gone? Because I was kind of asking myself that. The season wasn't moving me the way the previous 2 had, but by episode 5 and 6, I was all in again. I think that the showmakers, the writers, did right, not only by the fans, but the ending was also pretty consistent with these characters that we've come to know and love. And I mean that in a good way, that showed maturity or potential for growth for a lot of the characters. Anyway, onto the summary. In episode 1, there's a flurry of activity at the palace as Ville takes a seat at a table. It looks rather formal as his mother and some staffers join, and we hear that Simon is on his way. Then the royal aide announces that they're meeting to discuss the video leak. Remember back in season 1, August filmed and leaked a video of Simon and Ville together in bed, and it all came out in season 2 that it was August? Yeah, that video. Anyway, August is at this meeting. August's lawyer downplays the video, saying that this wouldn't even get a conviction in court, and in any case, the video itself is pretty innocent, because there's nothing wrong with gay people kissing. It's not really seen as a bad thing. Simon's mother points out that the fallout has been extremely difficult for them. People burned pride flags and they got harassing calls at home in the middle of the night. They still get hate mail at their home. Simon and his mom are later advised to take the settlement that August is offering, 1.2 million krona, which is about 100,000 euros. The royal family doesn't want to take legal action, so it's just Simon and his mom against August, and that offer is generous. Simon's mom doesn't care about the money, but Simon says that he just wants it to be over, and Ville had said that August would have to sell his dad's mansion to pay them, and that would be punishment enough. I mean, I thought that this was kind of harsh. I didn't like that Simon wanted this kind of payback, but he is the wronged party, and August is also out to protect his own, so... The boys, Ville and Simon, go to another room for a break, and the way Ville's face just lights up when he sees Simon, I can't. They're all cute and flirty. Ville takes him on a mini tour, and they passionately make out in his room. The proceedings continue then, but Simon's mother says that she's done talking, and she gets up to leave, and just then, August's lawyer drops a bombshell that if Simon's mom really believes that laws shouldn't just be broken and brushed under the carpet with money, then Simon should be reported for selling his dad's medication at school, and Ville should also be reported for threatening August with a rifle. Oh snap. Obviously, this is news to everybody but Ville and Simon, but they have no more leverage. The lawyer says that in exchange for August's silence and a generous settlement, the royal family needs to assure August that he's next in line for the throne, and this obviously infuriates Ville, who says that he'll never let him have it. August says, well, of course you won't, but in time you'll mess up anyway. Now look, I adore Ville, but August is not wrong here. Also, remember last season, the palace had already set in motion that August was going to be the backup. Ville and August exchange heated words, but in the end, the deal gets signed. Ville's poor mother, she's stressed and heartbroken, worried that neither of the boys are taking this really seriously, and she misses her son Eric. The fact that Ville will have to ascend the throne after her and he doesn't seem to want it and doesn't seem ready sends her into a panic attack. Felice at school is feeling depressed. Her friendship with Sarah ended at the end of last season, remember, and she's having a difficult time with it. Her friends are worried about the fact that she doesn't change her clothes and she's kind of withdrawn. But she does get a text from Ville saying that he's coming back to school today, which does cheer her up somewhat. Oh, I miss that friendship. In the car on the way to school, one of his advisors tells Ville that they may as well make lemonade and reframe the narrative to one of modernizing the image of the royal family. They have this whole Prince School thing set up for him during the summer when he will announce his first charity foundation. So yeah, it's full steam ahead with getting him ready for the throne. Simon does need to understand though that everything he does not only reflects on Ville but on the royal family as well, and he needs to lay low on social media and not talk to the media. At home, Simon's mom is really angry and disappointed in him and asks him to take a urine test, but it seems like she realizes that he's not actually using. She was just blindsided by the whole reveal. She grounds him for the rest of the semester then. When Sarah comes out to ask what's wrong, the siblings have a blowout because Simon thinks that it's Sarah's fault that he has all this trouble. Remember, Sarah, in an attempt to fix everything, called the police to report the sex tape crime, which escalated an already bad situation. Ville and Simon finally reunite at school and they kiss in front of everybody. Ville is very free, in love, he doesn't care, but Simon feels a little bit uncomfortable at first with some of the stares, but he's fine. It's all very cute. He's adorably dramatic when Simon tells him that he's been grounded for a whole semester, but Simon says that Wille could come over to his place or he'll sneak out. It seems like they might be foreshadowing an ED for August, I'm not sure, but he's body checking in the mirror. Could also just be August being August. In the change rooms, his teammates, friends, make a really rude and classist joke about Sarah, and August snaps at them to not talk about her like that. He genuinely did care about her last season. Sarah is not doing very well at home. She stares wistfully at her school uniform. At school, Felice checks in with her via Simon, asking how she is, and he admits that she's not doing great. Felice says that she's really angry at Sarah, but she still misses her. They were best friends after all. On his way home from school, Simon is questioned by two reporters waiting outside the school gates. He manages to ignore them, but later at home, he and his friends read gossip about him, and he makes the really bad decision to start replying to some of the online comments. He says that it's just so that people will know where he stands and who he is. Wille sees this and texts Simon to ignore the comments. It's not worth it. Simon goes into Sarah's room to look for her, but she's not there. She's decided to pack her things up and she's gone over to her dad's and she's going to stay there. He wants to prepare a room for her, but she says she's going to take the couch. He also does tell him that this doesn't change anything between them. She just can't be at home right now. Felice's friends stage a little intervention for her to get her cleaned up and back into living again, which is really sweet. The next morning, Wille wakes up with a smile, the way you do when you're young and in love, but that doesn't last long because his phone is blowing up. A pretty sensationalist article has been published, and in it, a former student is speaking out about his time at the school and particularly the institution's rituals, the initiation rituals. This student says that he was inspired by Wille's speech about breaking old traditions, so he also wanted to break his silence about some of the traditions at the school, about the mental abuse, the alcohol. He also alleges that boys were forced to watch gay sex movies, and the ones that were aroused got singled out. They were also forced to drink spit. They were made to undress. This is heinous riot club stuff. Posh boys are always up to this kind of nonsense. There's a huge media storm after the publication of this article, so classes are cancelled for the morning and everybody is called for an emergency assembly. The acting principal announces that all extracurricular activities are banned and the students' cell phones will be confiscated. They'll only have access to them for 1 hour a day. They're also instituting a curfew, and any alcohol or cigarettes found will result in immediate suspension. The school may be forced to close unless they can prove that they are a safe place. In episode 2, Wille and Simon are on the phone, missing each other and whispering sweet nothings. But remember, there are new rules at school, so Wille has his phone taken away just as they're getting into it. Simon is still struggling to ignore the hate comments about him and Wille. Well, the hate is mostly targeted at Simon, and it's also a lot of homophobic, racist hate as well. The seniors all think that their graduation has been ruined. One of the guys, Vincent, blames Wille, saying that they're going to have to give up their graduation because he just had to announce to the world that he hooked up with a guy. August surprisingly sticks up for Wille and tries to nip this in the bud lest it turn into a whole thing. He says that, well, do you want to go to a new school with new money trash? No? Well then, we should put out a statement of support for the school. Wille has a visitor then, and it's the comms PR advisor who tells him that his mother is in quite bad shape. She has stress migraines. Wille feels bad because everybody is blaming him, and when the PR lady hints at maybe pulling him out of school because these bullying revelations are a bad look, he refuses. So they end up taking a wait-and-see approach. The boys meet in the piano room and talk about what could happen if they eventually go to different schools, if their school gets shut down. I mean, has a school ever shut down over something like this? I don't think it will happen, but the kids seem to believe that it could. Felice is called to the principal's office then to talk about her experience at school, and of course, she has good things to say. The principal then tells her that she's on a list of students chosen to talk with the school inspector, which is good because her answers were positive, and it'll also be a good thing for the inspector to see that they're a diverse school. And we all know what this means. She's kind of being tokenized in this moment. The school announces that the students are going to be having a camping activity and it's outdoors. Simon suggests that he and Wille can share a tent. Sarah hasn't been doing well at her father's. She's out of school, remember, and just kind of floating about. Her father suggests she get a job, something that involves horses, but she's pretty jaded about the reality of that scene. She says that horses are just bought and sold like any other product. Remember the horse debacle of season 2 with Felice selling hers and then August buying it for her from the new owners who didn't really care for it? Yeah. Her dad even suggests working with abused horses, which I find a really perfect fit for her, but she doesn't seem interested already. He also suggests that they go driving, so they go off and practice together. Wille has joined the school choir as well. Can he sing? I mean, he's a prince, so I'm sure he can. One of the guys, Nessa, comes to August to try and talk about their initiation night. August admits that it was a joke, but not a very funny one. And Nissa says that he was scared to speak up. August promises to put it to a stop, but he doesn't know if he wants what happened to go public, and Nisa says neither does he. So what actually happened on their initiation night isn't mentioned yet. Something is up with August though. He's stressed. He tries to go for a run, but it's past curfew, so he tries to call Sarah, but when she says hello, he chickens out and he hangs up. He later goes to ask Simon how Sarah is, and Simon says, well, she's living with her dad, and she doesn't want to come back to school, she has no friends, and it's all August's fault. Way harsh. Wille then, in an uncharacteristically annoying move, goes to August to tell him to stay away from Simon, to stay away from both of them, and he's a little aggressive about it. Then he pulls rank and says that the royal family own August, and August says, well, you're not even king yet. This ends up in a brawl, as in a full-on physical fight on the floor, and the boys end up with a guidance counselor. They'll have to attend mediation together once a week. Simon gets Christian propaganda hate mail, and he ends up being inspired to write a song that he posts online. He gets a lot of positive comments which make him feel better, but this creates a problem for Wille, whose advisor says that it's an issue. Wille calls him and says that it's a beautiful song, but he just wants things to be private. He doesn't want them to be targets anymore. I gotta take Wille's side on this one. Anyway, at the end of the conversation, they do say I love you, but you can sense that things are strained. Sarah refuses to go back home for the moment, but her dad tells her that a letter came and she'll lose her spot at the school if she doesn't go back soon. Felice tries to talk to her friends about her worries, about being different, about some of the expectations around initiation, about all of it, but they can't really relate. The one example she gives is that she is constantly reprimanded for having her hair down, but the other white girls aren't. Of course, they do try to understand and they are sympathetic, but their experience is a little different. They can't really relate. The camping trip ends up being a lot of fun for everybody, and they even have a dance party. Simon's friends are there, and they all share with each other what they're doing over the summer. Wille says that he'll be attending an intense course, the Prince course, remember. Later in the tent, Simon gets angry when Wille compares it to Simon working over the summer. Simon's like, well, no, it's not the same thing. He and his friends have had to work since they were 14 to afford things, but Wille just gets everything paid for him and he goes on his Prince course. Simon says that Wille just doesn't understand how privileged he is, and they go to bed cross with each other. The next morning, Wille gets a call from his mother. She is going on sick leave due to stress. His father tells him that it isn't his fault, it's just been difficult and stressful since Eric's death, but that Wille needs to be strong now. In episode 3, Wille talks to his mother, who's not only stressed about her health, but also stressed about Wille having to take over if anything happens to her. The tide starts turning on Simon, and people are calling him a clout chaser with an alcoholic father. Wille tries to open up to Simon about his mom, and Simon is all wrapped up in his social media thing until Wille snaps at him that he needs to get it together and get used to it if they want to be together. August starts opening up to the guidance counselor. He says that he doesn't know the point of being nice if he'll never be forgiven, but the counselor encourages him for just doing it for its own sake, and perhaps he'll be able to forgive himself. August asked Wille about his mom and to sign a petition in support of the school, but of course Wille, as the crown prince, can't take a stand. Someone points out that he already kind of has taken a stand. So the school's inspector is coming, and I hope that the kids all pass so we can put this behind us. Simon and Wille sneak off to make out and almost get caught. During lunch, there's a clash of cultures when Simon talks about labor demonstrations. The aristo-rich boys can't relate, and they kind of make him feel bad about it, that he would dare stand in solidarity with the working class that he's in. Felice is faced with a decision of whether to put on a game face and say that everything is okay at the school, or actually tell the whole truth, be honest, and talk about her real experience there. Sarah and her father's driving lesson bonding sessions are really cute. August goes over to Sarah's dad's house to see her, and he apologizes. He asks her to come back to school. He feels bad that he's the reason that she's not there, but Sarah simply tells him goodbye. Her dad wants to talk to her about it, and he opens up about his own failures. He says that they have the same diagnosis that causes them to feel so much guilt and shame, but they shouldn't let that rule them. Partly because of this, Sarah ends up showing up at school, and I don't know why the scene when August says hi to her like that, I just lost it. It's a very emotional and cute storyline. Wille and Simon go off to spend some very steamy time together. At the labor movement that Simon is at, a mom and kid who are attending are fans of Simon, and they're asked to take a photo of him. It's a harmless photo, but it causes a big stir. Simon's all excited about it, but Wille gets a call from the palace that Simon needs to shut this down. His mom can't deal with the stress. Remember, this kind of demonstration, this kind of movement is mostly anti-monarchist. At the end of the episode, someone has thrown a rock through Simon's home window. In episode 4, Simon tells Wille that his mom has considered moving. Wille says that he'll talk to the royal court about some protection for Simon's family. Sarah comes back to school and she sees Felice, but shortly after, her friends come to get her and whisper to her to just ignore Sarah. Simon gets into it with the boys who have an issue with him being a communist, anti-monarchist who's dating a prince. Later he tells Wille that there's no conflict there because he can like Wille and still be against a system that people are born into that gives them undue influence and privilege. He also sees how Wille doesn't have a choice and how that makes him feel, but Wille is quite protective of the monarchy as part of Sweden's history. He thinks that being a part of it is a privilege and not a punishment. August runs into Sarah as she's leaving for the day, and he wishes her good luck on her theory driving exam. Wille asks his comms person if they can arrange security for Simon, and he will also need to attend his charity announcement thing with August because his mom is too ill and his father, the Duke, will stay with her. Wille insists though on having Simon there for his birthday, and the comms person agrees. The palace people come to arrange added security for Simon, a ride to and from school, and Simon has to do his part and keep a low profile on social media. Well, he needs to be off of social media, which is purgatory for a teenager. Sarah and her dad celebrate her passing her learners. For Simon and Wille, things are tense again. Wille has been given a list of foundation ideas, but he doesn't know which one to choose. Simon says that instead of those options, he could do something that really matters to him, something that he's passionate about, like mental health or LGBT advocacy. But Wille knows that that's not a good idea because he has to choose something very neutral, like sports. Also, just because he loves Simon doesn't mean that he has to be an advocate. Isn't him being open enough? We can see that Simon is not very happy about this. Vincent gathers everybody in the Great Hall. He thinks that the school is going too far in their violations of the students' privacy. They're going to organize a sit-in. Wille is all for it because he's also affected by these new rules. He wants to have Simon be able to stay over again. He wants his phone back. Simon is annoyed because this doesn't cost Wille anything. It's easy for him to participate in the sit-in. Simon is also annoyed because this is the same group that were making fun of him for his communist demonstrations. Meanwhile, even for them, these movements do bring about change, so obviously he finds it hypocritical. Simon is also bitter at Sarah, who now has some kind of relationship with their father when he has been ignoring their father for years for her sake. He does end up joining the sit-in though. The guys start getting hungry after a couple of hours, and in an unintentionally revealing moment, August says that hunger can feel good and motivating. Sure, you feel nauseous at first, but you're fine. Somebody comments that sounds like an eating disorder, but the moment is brushed over. Simon and Wille talk about their earlier disagreement, and they both apologize. The sit-in ends up being a lot of fun for a lot of the kids and a bonding experience. The boys end up sleeping in the passage. The sit-in does end up working. The students do get their cell phones back, only to be used after hours, and their graduation is back on. Felice and Sarah finally talk, and Sarah tells her that she's sorry and she never expects to be forgiven, but she is grateful that Felice was her first real friend. August and Wille have a chat, and Wille is again annoyed that August is always wanting an in with his family. He even followed Eric around like a puppy and he didn't even know Eric. That's when August reveals that Eric and his friends were the ones who arranged the gay sex movie thing. August recounts the humiliating initiation prank about how they were undressed, lined up, and told that the first one of them who became aroused would be beaten up. And, it's bad. In episode 5, Wille is having a difficult time with August's revelation. He's very distracted. Simon obviously picks up on it, but Wille just says that he's tired. Felice and Sarah are going to be grouped together to help out at the third year's graduation lunch. This is going to be a very cute friendship parent trap situation. August sees the letter that he wrote to his future self and he puts it in somebody's locker. On the phone with his dad, Wille is about to tell him about what he heard about Eric, but his dad is distracted. Simon tries to call, but Wille ignores it. He tells Simon that he's quitting the choir as well. Then they fight after Wille tells Simon about the Eric thing. To be fair to Simon, he was just trying to relate to Wille's experience and saying that, much like Sarah, who did something wrong, siblings aren't perfect. Wille takes offense to the idea that Simon makes that comparison. So it's a lot of crossed wires, and Wille's all confused. He's not thinking clearly anyway. But he's still very hurtful to Simon, who doesn't deserve that. By the way, the letter that August wrote, he put it in Sarah's locker. Sarah is panicking because her dad is late picking her up. He had promised to take her to her driving test. Now, earlier on, he just started taking his ADHD medication again, and it was concerning because he was being a little bit too productive, and Sarah picked up on that. so she already had a feeling that something might be off. During her driving test, she does see her dad meet up with some drinking buddies, and he's an alcoholic, so yeah, relapse. Simon confides in his mom about the fight that he and Ville had and how difficult it has been, and his mom says that love shouldn't be this hard, especially at this age. Sarah comes home in tears, having passed her driving exam, but heartbroken that her dad has evidently relapsed. Simon goes to Ville's room and sings to him, and in one of my favorite moments so far this season, he gives Ville a sandwich wrapped in tissue paper. Oh, I knew that they'd have to have this moment. Very, very, very cute. It's the day of the royal celebrations and Simon is going in pajama pants, I guess. Is nobody going to say anything? Okay. Ville and August are pretty good together in their diplomatic roles, but Ville tells his advisor that he doesn't want August at the party, so he's politely uninvited and August decides to go back to his graduation. Simon joins Ville and his parents for a rather formal lunch. It's fine. His parents are friendly and welcoming towards Simon, but Ville is very tense. Simon gets along quite well with Ville's parents, talking about his interest in music, but when Ville's mom mentions Eric's name, about how talented he was, Ville leaves the table. Meanwhile, at the graduation lunch, they're having a lot more fun. Felice and Sarah start to accidentally bond a little bit while preparing the plates. I don't know why, but almost all of Sarah's scenes this season just make me cry. It's very sweet to see them reconnect. August is also looking like he's having a very decent time, but he puts on a good face because we later see that he's really struggling. Sarah just happens to come out then and she insists on giving his letter back to him. She doesn't want to read it, but August eventually reads it to her and Sarah, there's something about him that she understands in that moment, and before he can really explain himself further, she hugs him and he says that he wishes he was different with her, and then they kiss. Aww. One of Felice's friends, though, sees the kiss and she runs off to tattletales to Felice. Simon finds Ville and says that he thinks that maybe it's best that he leave. Ville has a tantrum then, saying how difficult this is for him too, and he needs Simon there, but if Simon wants to leave, he should. Simon ends up staying, but Ville decides to let it all out on his parents. How they weren't the only ones grieving Eric, and they couldn't even really be parents to him because the grief of Sweden seemed to be more important than his. His mother says she struggles to be his mom and his boss, and Ville points out, well, she sucks at both. It's bad. He eventually pushes his gifts off the table, leaving his parents heartbroken and Simon absolutely stunned. Simon later tells Ville that it's good that he's honest with his parents, but everything seems to hurt him, and that hurts Simon as well. He says the same thing that his mother told him then. That love shouldn't be this hard and maybe this can't work. As much as I thought I was ready for this moment, it really did hurt. In episode 6, the final episode of season 3 and of the show, the boys are both reeling from their most recent breakup. Ville is pretty self-aware because he knows exactly why Simon did it. Simon decides to skip school for the day. The siblings' dad leaves them the car and he leaves a letter on the windshield telling them to see the world. I don't know, it could have been a goodbye note, but I don't think it is. In an absolutely shocking twist, the school is going to be shut down. Everyone is shouting, blaming each other. Ville and Felice take the brunt of it because Ville had made the speech, which seems to have set everything off, and Felice's friends know that she was chosen to talk to the inspector. August takes this news very hard. The boys, Ville and Simon, talk, and they're about to really get into it when another student interrupts them. The kids all decide then that they're going to host one last party, since it's all over anyway, and Felice convinces Ville to go with them. At the party, Ville and Simon see each other, and Ville goes into another room to get away for a little bit, and August ends up being in that same room. Ville apologizes to August for what Eric did to him, and August says that Eric would have loved him no matter what, even if he saw what was on that video, him and Simon. August apologizes then to Ville. I mean, he's been sincerely sorry for a long time, but this is the first time that Ville accepts and he says thank you. Sarah bumps into Felice, and Felice assumes that Sarah will lie about her feelings for August, but Sarah admits that she does have feelings for him, but her feelings for Felice, for herself, and even for Simon are more important right now. Felice admits that she is the reason that the school is shutting down because she told the inspector everything. The girls say that they miss each other. Nisa finally comes out to his friends. Remember, he'd already previously come out to Ville. The friends are all supportive. But even back in season 1, there's never the sense that these boys are homophobes anyway. August and Sarah meet at the party, and he's all excited about them being together and their plans for the summer, how he'll come and visit her, but Sarah ends it then. She says that he thinks he likes who he is when he's with her, and he doesn't really see her. August says he doesn't think he can take it, and she kisses him and tells him that it'll pass. Simon goes up to Villa and proposes that they just forget everything that's happened, the obligations, the social media drama, and just have one last night together. Villa says that he'd love to, and I really like this idea, but at the same time it's going to make things so much harder. They end up having a very nice night together, and they watch the sunrise, they go for a swim. Some of the scenes on the show between Villa and Simon are so beautiful, and this is one of them. By the way, there's also a cute lesbian storyline with one of Felice's friends and one of Simon's friends, who end up in bed together after the party. As Villa is packing up his room, Simon sends him a gift, which is a song. The school then announces that they'll be appealing the decision to shut down. Villa's parents come to graduation and they tell him that he's right. They kind of neglected their roles as parents in favor of their duty to the country. Villa's mom asks him for forgiveness and they all hug. He also sees Simon and thanks him for the song. They say goodbye to each other and wish each other a good summer. By the way, they kind of talk about the breakup and Simon does mention something like it was the palace or the royal family that he was breaking up with. In the car on the way back home, Villa tells his mother quite definitively that he does not want this. He never has. This isn't about Simon, it's always been about the role for him. As he leaves the car with his mother's eventual blessing, the camera pans to August. At this moment, I kind of thought, can we please have a show with August as lead as he goes to his crown prince training and eventually ascends the throne? And of course, overcoming his eating disorder and finding love. Anyway, in the end, Villa goes out and he runs after the car as Sarah is driving away and he shouts for them to stop. They do, and Simon comes out of the car. Villa tells him that he gave it up. He doesn't want to be crown prince anymore. He doesn't want to be king, and his mother is okay with that. When Simon asks if he gave it up for him, Villa says, no, I gave it up for my own sake. These two obviously still love each other. It's not done. They kiss and he leaves as Simon. And definitely go on to have the summer of their lives. And yeah, that's the end of season 3 and the show. If you have seen it, feel free to share your thoughts and thank you for watching.